Okay, now remember that they're changing my voice. I actually had to make this video again because I said some controversial stuff in the other video, and I don't think that it's wise to leave that as that, and to not make another video with this picture, because this picture is key. It establishes that I am the ideal man. When you look at this collage on the screen, this collection of pictures, it establishes definitively that I'm the ideal man, and they're editing my pictures. They added red to my lips, so I put a sun to cover up the lips, and they made it so that picture looked like a cartoon picture. That picture was a picture taken on a webcam, actually around, strangely enough, around 20 years ago. 20 years ago. That picture's 20 years old. And I had a blue beanie on, right? And I did have my shirt off, and for whatever reason, it looked better that way than any shirt I had at the time. So I said, hey, I'm going to take this picture like this. I liked the camera angle. I liked how it looked with the beanie on my head. The webcams used to make my forehead look huge. Made it look huge. I looked like a fucking alien or something. I looked very bad. And I didn't look so bad in person. Sometimes when I grew my afro out, okay, it would pronounce my forehead and it looked big, but my forehead isn't that big. You know, at various points in life, I had the ideal face, right? The most handsome face ever. They made it so I look like I have magically less testosterone or something. Okay, I've always been a very hypersexual, high testosterone person, and you could see a very serious masculine look on my face. At the same time, a very graceful and handsome look. This is where masculine and handsomeness overlapped. And when I start getting very angry, you see an extreme expression of masculinity that's unmatched, and it's a very focused and sharp, pinpointed masculinity, instead of like a bigger guy with a more kind of broad sense of masculinity, a more kind of, baby fat. When you have a lot of body fat, it's like a female who's pregnant or somewhere. A female trying to get strong. Doesn't have much testosterone, so there's a lot of body fat. So it's hard to explain the effect, but again, they look like males, they look like angry males, what have you. But I look like the perfection of the brain function, marshaling the body's processes and chemicals in a certain way that created a very divine representation of God in me. Okay, so it was clear that I'm the image of God before they edited my pictures and fumed and poisoned me. And you can imagine that's unforgivable. Not only did they create the situation for it to be immoral to reproduce, it's never going to be moral to reproduce in the flesh ever again. No one should have kids, but they covered up the image of God in a way that's irreversible. Even if they stopped right now, you'd have trouble seeing how I naturally look because of all the years of chemicals and fumes and poisons. So anyway, as we're looking at this picture, right, it says, she says that she loves Superman, and Superman says he loves her. And she's thinking, is he the best I can get? And we see that Superman, who is like a clown with underpants on the outside, is for kids. It's stupid, right? It's corny, right? It's comic, right? Comic book, comic. It's comedy, okay? He's superimposed on the actual ideal man, which is the Royal African Falcon top martial arts. Now, keep in mind that we all come from Africa, but not everyone stayed in the African Falcon culture. The Igbos are basically the tribe that did, but they didn't really stay in it as a group. Okay, the subgroup of the Igbos, my family line, stayed in it, right? And the other guys, we're sharing our presence, we're sharing various things with us, but weren't the divine order. They're a tribe that has the honor, the profound honor, to say that they had the divine, you might say, pharaonic line, the King of Kings line, the Christos, the anointed line of God. Okay. Not someone's conception of who the Pharaoh might be or should be, but actually what God set apart. And so no one can ever take that away from him. But I'm not a tribalist. I'm not a racial supremacist, despite what you might think. Okay. So when you mix somebody who's far more romantic than the R&B singers, right? A really righteous, intense African spirit, with a white woman who submits, who's a doctor, who's a smart person, book smart, who is a selfless person to a large degree. My mom really goes the distance in that way. It comes together a certain way. And in my genes, you have the king of the Igbos in their Falcon Center, Aries Center. And you have the servant of the king who was allowed to marry his daughter, and so on. It comes together a certain way to create this ideal mixture of humility and divinity and warrior prowess and dedication and loyalty and determination, all the martial art principles there, focus, righteousness, justice, and it really expressed itself with God's permission, on God's time, with God's kind of formula and plan. And God's plan did not allow for anyone, including the Igbos, to have another king after my flesh dies. It is heartbreaking, but it is the case. And the occultists, the evidence suggests that they're sure, as I am sure, that it's the case. And part of why people are treated poorly, arguably the central reason, is because they're cheating me out of my right to lead. Think of a Roman who says, hey, you betrayed Jesus, what the fuck good are you to me? Or think of how Judas lives in infamy, whether you're a Christian or not. He's a fucking traitor. So imagine, as you're looking at society and you're mad at the world, you're like, fuck the world. As a rich person, as a group of rich people, you're looking at these worms who shun Jesus for mere money, for social status, for a purse, because they're scared to fight. Now, also, write this part down. A lot of people don't understand this part, and I bring it up from time to time, but I haven't brought it up enough. As much as people say I repeat a lot of stuff, I should have repeated this many times. Zeus, almost first and foremost, is a military deity. He's first and foremost a rape deity and a deity of false justice, of fake justice, of white justice, if you will. And keep in mind, the word white didn't come about until the Romans colonized all of Europe and defined white people as having a kind of Judeo-white identity and series of identities and compartments with a white Greco-Roman, Judeo-Greco-Roman identities, LGBT-ish identities to very LGBT identities. So Zeus, as a military deity, does not respect bitch-made ass shit. He might be the biggest bitch that ever lived in his own way. Okay? But think of Zeus as like, a mixture between a short Jew who is the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, a big fat angry king, and a drill sergeant or something. He despises bitch-made motherfuckers who bend over for him individually or as a group. He despises people who are pushovers. As they colonize the world, they say, who has heart? They want to see someone with heart. Look at Norse culture, for example. Zeus's alter ego, he has two alter egos. One is Hades, one is Poseidon, logically. Poseidon is a play on which propose Odin. And Odin in Norse mythology, there's someone named Tyr. And where we get the word martyrs from Mars, a deity of Western war arts, which they call martial arts, but it's not really martial arts, really war arts. And Tyr, okay? Tyr was a Norse deity who was selfless, right? He's a deity of martyrs, basically of Nordic martyrs, right? Of Viking martyrs, what have you, okay? He put his hand into a wolf's mouth, knowing that the wolf was going to get pissed off when it realized it was betrayed, right? There's more to the story than this. I'm just going off the top of the memory here, but to give you the general idea, the pertinent facts here relative to what I'm explaining. And the wolf ends up biting his did I say his arm? His hand. He put his hand in his mouth. He bites off his hand. So he sacrificed his hand, his self, his ability to go to war. His right hand is one way to look at the right hand of a warrior, right? In order to help out the Norse deities and the Norse people, what have you, right? So he's seen as this deity of self-sacrifice, of martyrs. That's where we get the word martyr. Mars and Tyr. And Mars scrambled his rams. And of course they mock Christ with the Baphomet, right? And Baphomet, right? Ba meaning soul, okay? Soul of the foe met, and soul of the foe team. Okay, so the heart of, say, rock and roll people or the Templars who are said to worship the Baphomet, and the Baphomet is, instead of worshiping God, Son, and God, they're worshiping that goat, and it's a gender-neutral goat with breasts and so on and so forth, okay? And that's what that is. And that goes back to Pan, and it goes back to the goat of Mendes and Num and all these other goat deities who these people are well aware of, and they incorporated into their amalgamation, which is the Baphomet. The sacrificial goats and separating the sheep from the goats in Matthew 25 and so on and so forth. And goat is goat, and tuge and toga scrambled. Associating with white culture, Greek culture, what have you, the togas. And going at wanting people to go at gay and to live a gay life, how you live, how you die, what have you. The Egyptians prepared their whole life for death. And I'm not ever going to be gay. So anyway, as we look at this thing, the ideal man, okay, is the Skywalker, not in this kind of mocker cartoon form like they edited my picture to look like. And keep in mind that picture at that time wasn't me in the pinnacle of my martial arts training or something. So it was not perfect already, but it's extremely handsome. And they ruined it and made it look like some kind of Babylon baby looking nonsense. Okay? But in both pictures, you would have seen a resemblance to Horus. Okay? And it's more than looking like, keep in mind, a pretty boy. Horus is not a pretty boy. Horus is not a bitch. Horus is not gayish. Horus is a god of war in the very pinnacle, the heart of African warfare, as expressed through a masculine, heterosexual, mature mulatto person, not a gayish person. Not WWF, not Power Rangers, not fairy, none of that bullshit. None of that Pharisee fairy nonsense. You see what I'm saying? And so the handsomeness, not the gay look or the prettiness, handsomeness is lost in that picture. But I still put it because you see that strong connection there. How they wanted to depict me, how they wanted to depict Horus, and how it looks nearly identical. You can tell that if you put a falcon head on my body, it's nearly identical to that Horus depiction, which is a more kind of, they mixed in Atum, who is called the great he, she. Okay, who's gender neutral, which goes back to the pecs. Why they're trying to get me out of shape, because they want me to be shaped more like Atum instead of how I'm naturally shaped with the, the most impressive, body and what have you, and that includes the very masculine pecs and so on and so forth, right? They want kind of gender neutral Baphomet breasts instead of pecs, and that goes back to Atum and Happy of the Nile and so on and so forth, right? Okay. So you see that it says that Superman is superimposed on Horus in more than one place, and when it comes to people doing their research, okay, not in Eurocentric Encyclopedia Britannica or Wikipedia, but people who've actually done their research and have no ulterior motive, okay, because these places like Turi, Egypt, and Britannica, they're trying to uphold the Babylonian and kind of Greco-Roman kind of white, Jewish, and LGBT heavy construct. So we see that Horus, and I went over this in the other video, I don't know if it's going to be up still, is also called Kemwer, according to their research. And so to make a long story short, when you write Set, for example, or Horus, you could write Horus HR. They could say Haru, or Hero, or Horus, or Heru. Okay, so you add the vowels, vowel to L. What the vowels is like sending a message, right? Say Hara, or you remove the H, which is a fence symbol, you get A-Ra. And they, I can't really, they're filming me, so I can't say it the way I want to, but it has a certain martial art way about it that you've never heard before. So, Ara! Okay, so I'm going to kind of speak louder again. Ara! Okay, kind of thing, right? So that's really the name. It has to do with how you would communicate something. How would I communicate to a bunch of people who Horus is? Well, the guy who does that, who says that, who the sound reminds you of, it's like that, right? The name of God, right? The name of God's Son, okay? And, when they say Ray, it's because they're gay, right? And you get gay core is part of the play on words for Greek, okay? And they say that the word Horus is a Greek word, okay? And you see how it has the whore and the us. And who's the us? It's the Judeo-Greco-Roman person. It goes back to Dionysus. And according to Tacitus or someone, the Jews are said to be from Crete, and Crete is said to very much influence Greco-Roman mythology, right? Where Zeus in some versions is born in Crete. You have Pasiphae, the King Minos, who's said to be his father. You have various stories there, right? Okay, so there's that. To make a long story short, you should understand this picture very well that I have on the screen by now with the information you're given, right? So you get the Kemwer becomes Emeka or Amaka, war, or Amaka Ra, Amaka Emeka, okay, war, where Horus is a deity of justice and war, but he's God's son. So the word deity is confusion because it's not a pagan deity that people made up. It's the idea of something that must be true, period. And if you look at it scientifically, you would say it must be true with the evidence given. If you, especially if you assume that there's a creator, that the creator is saying that's what that is, and that's what I intend for you to believe. Thank you.